Ray Dalio says that if Bitcoin is really successful, regulators will kill it. And this is something that he has said many times in the past. He's reiterating that here. Ray Dalio, obviously, he's the founder of the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates. And he believes that regulators will ultimately take control of Bitcoin if the cryptocurrency gains mainstream success. I don't think he's too far off the mark there. But there's a lot of questions about how this could happen and whether this would ultimately kill Bitcoin or not. Obviously, I don't think that something decentralized can be completely shut down. But I'll throw this to the group to get your take, and then I'll add my thoughts. So, Zach, I'll throw it to you to start.
Yeah, for sure. So no shade on CNBC, but Ray Dalio was on CNBC's Air. They wanted to showcase that appearance. We had someone look into this yesterday and write this up, and I was like, I swear I've heard that exact same headline like 3 times, and I found like at least 2 times where Ray Dalio has said the exact same thing, and the reporter actually found 4 times in the last year where he said, "Hey, governments are going to ban this thing." So it does seem to be a preoccupation of Dalio's. He's noted as a really smart guy who thinks about markets in complex ways, and so people sort of tend to respect his viewpoints on things. I mean, he pens like long emails and has some really strong viewpoints on where things are going in the economy writ large. He also owns a little bit of Bitcoin. He told CoinDesk's consensus conference this year, which is also notable. But he's still, I think, very drawn to this idea that Bitcoin may be a victim of its own success should it continue to threaten governments in the way that it does. I think the question I want to ask is what is the mechanism that he is alluding to where a government could kill Bitcoin? I think a government could make it more difficult to acquire and hold, but kill, I don't know, would that be sort of like a quantum computing attack or just nuking all of the mines? I don't know what it would look like. So I just want to ask the technical question. I'll toss this to Will. If a government were to kill Bitcoin, as Ray Dalio is saying is possible, what would that even look like?
Yeah, there's smart critiques of Bitcoin and there's poor ones. And I think this somewhat falls in between. It's hard to understand what Ray is saying with killing Bitcoin itself. There are ways to attack Bitcoin, and certainly, you brought up quantum computing, which doesn't really exist as a thing yet, but would say in 50 years it does exist, and you can somehow break the algorithm that's behind Bitcoin. That would be one way to kill it. There's already people thinking about how to protect Bitcoin in that instance. To kind of go over to the mining side, you could kind of clamp down like China did on Bitcoin miners and make life really uncomfortable for them to be able to mine. Well, there's other people planning to kind of work with that. And then on the banning Bitcoin, just holding it or exchanging it, we're already seeing that the SEC and others are making it uncomfortable for people to do so on some level. But it certainly doesn't seem like there is a larger impetus from regulators and lawmakers to make that a thing across the board. I think about 17% of Americans hold Bitcoin nowadays. It's a sizable constituency, and it'd be pretty tough to go against all those people, especially when there's elections every 2 years. And there's also a lot of noted senators, congressmen, and regulators who hold Bitcoin themselves or are Bitcoin advocates. So I don't necessarily agree with him on this. I don't think regulators are going to do that. I think they might have an interest, but it's probably a little bit too late to attack it in that sense. Also, it's really uncertain what killing Bitcoin means. Like what you said, Zach, you can't just shut down this network. That's the whole point of it. So, Naomi, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, so we should look at the history of private monies and alternative currencies, because literally the history of alternative money is the government continually shutting down anything that competes with their sovereign currency. And so the whole reason Bitcoin was created is, okay, we know the government is going to attack this. We know the government will feel threatened by this and will not want this around. How do we create something that we can withstand that? And we haven't been able to do it previously, because if you have a physical currency, you have a counterparty. You have a centralized entity that needs to issue this thing. It becomes very easy for a government to target that and shut it down and throw the CEO in jail or whatever. And we even had digital iterations of competing circulating currencies before. The cypherpunks worked on a lot of different ones. And again, governments didn't like any of them. Some of them shut down just because they failed in other ways, but a lot of them were targeted by governments as well. And again, it's because we hadn't figured out this decentralized component. The Bitcoin revolution is because we finally have a money that can't be shut down. We finally have a money that is decentralized. So, I mean, that doesn't mean that the government can't target this. Before, when we had private banks issuing notes, the governments just taxed them out of existence. And, now they're trying to do it the same thing with cryptocurrencies. With, SEC is coming down hard. The IRS is coming hard. All of these regulatory agencies are finding ways to target Bitcoin, and it is going to dampen it. So they really can throttle this. They can make adoption move slower, but this is our inevitable future. The internet is moving faster and faster towards a decentralized model where there are less and less gatekeepers. We're figuring out the technology in order to decentralize all of that power in all aspects of our digital lives, and currency is definitely part of that. So yes, the government can try and attack this, and it can throttle it for a while, but they're not going to kill it. And even if they do get like mainstream people saying, oh, I don't really want to touch this, even if they make institutional players say, oh, this is too risky for us as a company to hold this, if the government doesn't like it, this was popularized on the dark web. This was popularized on the fringes of society. It's going to continue to be popular there. And the more that governments put regulations in place, the more of our economy becomes dark markets. The more that they say, well, you can't $100 in a startup because we consider that illegal in America. Okay, so people are just going to do that in a way that can't be shut down. And I also think that this means that privacy coins are going to become increasingly important. It may not just be Bitcoin that is our decentralized future. There are other currencies there that give us more privacy. And if the government does clamp down on this, people are going to want to keep their financial activities more private, and we'll probably start diving into all of that.